Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Outside Insider podcast here on Philly Sports Network with myself, Liam Jenkins. It has been a minute. We didn't have an episode last week because, you know what? We can't break the internet, can we? We can't drop too much heat in one week. That would just be unfair. You know, we've got to be picking and choosing our times here. So if you're just joining the show, if you're new around here, hit that subscribe button down in the description. If you're on Spreaker or Philly Sports Network or YouTube or wherever, get this in your subscriptions. It's absolutely free to do so. It takes 5 seconds of your time and means you get the show straight to your device for free without you having to lift a finger every week. So if you want more tea and crumpets, Eagles knowledge in your ear holes, this is the show you need to come to. And what a week it's been. You know, I was gonna originally have this show kind of postponed until Friday or Saturday. I wanted to have it previewing the Indianapolis Colts and be an almost all-22 podcast. And then the Dallas Goedert thing happened after the Eagles lost to the Bucks, where we didn't know whether he was coming or going. And then Josh Gordon happened, and then Carson Wentz happened, and then Jordan Matthews happened. And then I shut my finger in a door, but we'll leave that for now. It just hurts a little bit, okay? I just had to get it in there somehow. I wanted to start with this though, and it's something that has obviously irked me over the last few days. It's that if you're a kid, right, and you have a favourite takeaway, and you love it, like for me it was McDonald's because I don't know why, like KFC in England's just not that great. We don't really have a Wendy's or we do have one Taco Bell, but it's like a million miles away. So for me, McDonald's is like the only takeaway we have that's not pizza, right? So every Sunday, like, I want to get a McDonald's. And I knew what I was going to get with McDonald's. I always, apart from the Happy Meal toys, they were a bit awful. But you always knew what you were going to get. Big Mac, fries, strawberry milkshake. Don't question me, that just is the dream lineup, right? You always knew what you were going to get. And do you know what? Sometimes that burger would be sloppy. And sometimes the chips would be cold. But you'd go back the next week because you know it's nice. And you know for you, that satisfies a craving, right? If you grow up and you realise there are fine delicacies now, such as Papa John's or Domino's. So, you know, I would name like actually fancy restaurants, but being English, I can't think of any you'd know. But just, you know, you're going to go out fine dining. You take girls on dates. You go out for Italian or Thai or Japanese, whatever the culture of food may be. You want something different. You want to spice up your life. You know, you want these exciting new thrill rides of food sensation. Does that mean that if you're having a low week, if your girl breaks up with you and you can't go on those dates anymore, that you're not going to go and order that Big Mac? You're not going to, you know, get those lovely cold fries and that strawberry shake? Maybe you'll even go large. You know, maybe you'll just go all out. And that is exactly what's happened with Jordan Matthews, okay? It's the only way you can possibly describe it. Because the Eagles know what they're getting. This is a man that knows the scheme, knows the offense, knows the coach, knows the quarterback, knows his tight end, mentored Nelson Aguilar. He knows Philly. And in a time of need where there is no dream role model girlfriend, there is no Kourtney Kardashian and Alshon Jeffrey, there is no, who's a 40-year-old that's actually quite hot, I can't think now, but there is no Mike Wallace, okay? All you've got is Nelson Aguilar, Shelton Gibson, DeAndre Carter's been waived. Who's left? Kamar Aiken? Really? We go Kamar Aiken, you're going to hang your hat on Kamar Aiken. Josh Perkins at tight end. When you have got a situation where you know you can't get the best from it, you be the best you can in that situation. The Eagles did that in signing Jordan Matthews. And everyone is absolutely going to credit Doug Peterson, Mike Groh for the sheer development of Nelson Aguilar, and maybe even Jordan Matthews, because upon his departure, Aguilar could return to the slot where he dominated in USC. But let's not forget that 2016 season where the wide receiving corps was a depleted Aguilar. He was very low on confidence. Dorial Green-Beckham, Bryce Treggs and Jordan Matthews. Matthews was the guy leading that locker room. And when I spoke to him about this at the end of that season, he said it definitely helps when you put it out there because it makes it easier for everyone to know how to help you. That was him talking about Nelson Aguilar. If you don't address the problem, then you don't know it's there. Does that not apply to the Eagles right now? If you don't know it's there but everyone else does, then it's even worse, because the only person who can make a change is completely oblivious to it. When he opened up about it, we knew exactly what to do and the things to help him out with. Aguilar was being mentored by Jordan Matthews. In every sense of the word. And let's not forget that upon learning that Carson Wentz had been drafted, when OTAs rolled around, Matthews and Wentz were there a week early. They got to the NovaCare complex 7 days earlier than anyone else to get extra work in. And I was sent a video by a friend of mine at the time of those two working out, walking through the bubble, just running some basic routes. And that wasn't even a starting quarterback. Then Carson Wentz was a number 2. Let's also not forget something that Jordan Matthews told me. Carson Wentz gave him a puppy during his rookie season. That golden retriever is named Carson. As far as I'm aware. Either way, I mean, Carson's dog's called Henley. The puppy, I'm pretty sure it's called Carson, maybe wrong. Either way, the puppy was a puppy. It's now a big dog. Alright, the point is, Jordan Matthews is back. He's got great chemistry with Carson Wentz. He attended the wedding of both Wentz and Zach Ertz. This is a huge move for the Eagles. And a lot of people are overstating this because, well, where's he going to play? He can't play outside. He's a slot guy. So move Nelson Aguilar outside. He has had 8 receptions so far from outside. From playing WR1 or WR2. Aguilar has been playing a significant amount of his snaps outside and by the numbers. Because the Eagles don't have the personnel to keep him in the slot. Now, a lot of you are going to go, well, we've seen him in outside positions, Liam. He's dreadful. He was awful. I'll always remember that game against the Jets in 2016. It was week 4, and Nelson Aguilar was lined up against who other than Revis Island, and he burned him every single time. Every time. The routes he ran, his separation off the line, his quick feet, his ability to flip his hips and open his kind of hands to get away from Revis. That it was unmatched. It was stunning. And Bradford never went his way because there was a lack of chemistry. Aguilar now has refined that skill set. We saw the burners come out on a sweep play just last weekend against the Bucks. In fact, we've seen him receive several big catches in that game from an outside position. So what is wrong with having Aguilar as a number 1 receiver, Gibson as your deep threat speed guy that caught 17 out of 20 catchable passes during his final season at West Virginia that were over 20 yards. And Jordan Matthews, who in the slot, for context, alright, let's just put this into context. During his 3 years as a Philadelphia Eagle, he averaged 75 receptions, 891 yards, and 6.3 touchdowns. Now, in this magical Super Bowl team that had Jeffrey, Torrey Smith, Trey Burton, Zach Ertz, Nelson Aguilar, do you know where he would have ranked in those statistics? He'd have been 1st in receptions, 1st in receiving yards, and 4th in terms of touchdowns. And you're telling me you don't want that kind of player on your team? The only reason he was released from the New England Patriots was because they needed a desperate IR spot for the amount of injuries they'd already sustained. There was just no room, and it made sense to cut a position you're heavy, cut your nose to spite your face, bring Matthews back if he's healthy. The Eagles pip them to the post, Matthews returns home. He was sent away in a trade to acquire a cornerback because God forbid if they didn't. If the Eagles did not trade Jordan Matthews to Buffalo, Patrick Robinson would have been starting outside in very much an inverse of Nelson Aguilar. He's a guy that is, again, destined for the slot. I told you before he signed. He was perfect as an Indianapolis Colts cornerback in 2015. Absolutely smashed it. Was one of the most fluid movers I've ever seen play the position. An absolute monster. And then he moved for 1 season, and he's back outside, and he's getting torched every week. And then in training camp, he's going up against Alshon Jeffrey, getting torched every week. The acquisition of Ronald Darby sent him inside, into his comfort zone, against tight ends and slot receivers. I don't get the problem. Everyone can look at the numbers or they can look at the tape and say, Matthews isn't fast, or he puts his foot in the ground, it looks like he's stuck in the mud, he's got a limited route tree, he can't catch. Say what you want, the numbers don't lie. And when you've got a quarterback returning from a torn ACL, who is already without his number one receiver, without his number two receiver, without an off-season of practice to build up a chemistry with the receivers who are on the field, without pre-season, without taking an actual hit behind an offensive line that may lack Jason Peters, and without potentially Darren Sproles and Jay Ajayi, do you not think a guy who was his favourite target in his rookie year would be a good acquisition for $690,000? Which is what it's costing them on a one-year deal? Really? I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna let that thought simmer because I think I've beat this drum now for quite some time. It's been an emotional few days. You know, I was one of the first guys on the Jordan Matthews thing. I was also one of the last, and I know I broke the contract's length. So this is the first time in my life I've not broken a story, but been on something and not been made a victim of, you know, British comments about tea and crumpets. So thank you for, you know, trusting in me. I hope I've finally built some credibility with you all by this point. I'll continue to try and grind that stone all the way as far as I can. But again, if you're new around here, hit subscribe down below. It will really mean the world to me. If you can hit that button, rate it 5 stars on iTunes. Let's get this podcast booming. The sooner we grow, we can get more guests on. We're going to have a special guest next week as well, so you don't want to miss that. That's going to be a lot of fun. But before we get to next week, we've got to talk about the Colts, and one decision the Eagles absolutely have got to work out is what is going on with Dallas Goedert. I mean, this is getting a bit worrying now. You can call it game planning, you can call it schematics, all you want. The point is, 1 year ago, the Eagles ran so much 13 personnel, it may as well have been a lucky number. Because the combination of Selleck's blocking, Ertz's verticality, and Burton's Swiss Army knife tendencies made this offense work. It gelled it together. It was the glue in the middle that allowed the more stringy parts, like the wide receivers, to do their thing outside unfazed, unhinged. But this year, I made an article on it, and again, everyone seemed to overlook this. Richard Rodgers went down with injury, who at the time was the team's only blocking tight end viable option. Now, he wasn't a masterclass, he wasn't brilliant, but you know what? He did alright for Aaron Rodgers in the Packers for a little while. He wasn't totally useless. There was, you know, definitely a learning curve there, but let's be honest, Ertz and Goedert are two clear receiving tight ends. There is no doubting that at all. The two are primed to be red zone targets, dominant, you know, pass catchers down the field, who can make defenses pay with the click of their fingers. That's always been the way. They were never going to be blocking supremacists. They, I'm sure, very rarely ever will be. Although Ertz has got a bit better since his days, I think it was against the Bengals, wasn't it? Where there was that atrocious block that very almost ended horrifically. So without Richard Rodgers, you've then got a personnel of Zach Ertz, who is one of the best receiving tight ends in the league. Dallas Goedert, who is 6'5" and should be one of the best red zone receiving tight ends in the league in a few years. And Joshua Perkins, who was a wide receiver, converted to tight end, somehow made the roster because of the Richard Rodgers injury, and here he is. Taking snaps over Goedert, taking snaps over Carter. I mean, let's be honest, DeAndre Carter got snaps in week 1, caught a 10-yard pass over Dallas Goedert and was waived days later. Week 2, Joshua Perkins, who was an undrafted free agent, who has somehow beat Billy Brown to beyond a practice squad spot, but a final 53-man roster spot, has been getting snaps and actual passes thrown his way over Dallas Goedert. So why aren't the Eagles playing 3 tight ends? Well, obviously you're going to compromise a receiver outside. Obviously, if you're trying to set up a jumbo package to run the ball, having those 3 guys blocking your way against 300-pound defensive, it's not going to end well. It just isn't, let's be honest. But the Eagles are playing so much 11 personnel that it's actually a little bit worrying. Because Zach Ertz is the lone tight end out there. You know if he's out there, he's not going to block. 9 times out of 10, that won't be a rushing attempt. He won't be getting to the second level to pick up a linebacker. So the Eagles just end up in this very weird spot now where if they put Ertz and Goddard on the field, surely it would just be a dream. I don't understand in what game plan this isn't an advantage. Now Mike Groh and Doug Peterson have both came out and said that, it's due to matchup and it's game planning, but what matchup can you think of on your head right now where Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz pretty much holding hands at the line of scrimmage, looking at two linebackers, or a linebacker and a safety, or a linebacker and a corner? How is that not an advantage? I don't understand. If you're going for a big play at 3rd and 7, you've got two tight ends, you're going to have maybe a wide receiver out, and maybe even split a backfield, who knows? But what are you going to do? I don't understand how this is so different. Maybe there is something with the playbook. Maybe there's something we're not aware of with Goddard. Perhaps it's like a bit of a niggling injury. Something setting him back. Either way, it's got to end. Because the Eagles are going to end up very compartmentalised extremely quickly. Especially if this offence shows any shades of 2016. Where all traffic was through Ertz and Jordan Matthews. Because again, like 2016, there's no real run game at the moment to support them. And again, like 2016, Carson Wentz is probably going to have a little bit to shake off. And instead of rookie nerves, this time it's coming off a torn ACL. So defenses are going to key in very quickly on the middle of the field. Goddard is a difference maker. So you can get him out in the flat maybe. Get him on slants. Move the chains. And do you not think by having him out there, if defenses are already keying on the middle, and then you bring Goddard, and that brings extra attention. Hello, Shelton Gibson, one-on-one. Hello, Nelson Aguilar, one-on-one. Do you not think that would happen? I don't know. I'm no NFL playbook creator. I'm no genius at the gridiron. I'm literally just a guy who watches a lot of tape and has observations. But even if Goddard's blocking is bad, surely having him out there getting reps is the only way to improve it? You're against the Colts. They're not a good defense. It's not that difficult. Surely, if there really is a problem with Dallas Goedert in run blocking, getting him out there, getting him snaps, especially if you go up and you get to garbage time situations, is going to be the only real way to combat that. It's a really difficult spot. But if Goddard doesn't get more snaps, then this is the 3rd week in a row. You know what they say, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me? Fool me a 3rd time, and we're going to need answers, Doug. We're going to need answers. Because this is your 2nd round pick. You traded out of the 1st round to get this guy. You moved back because you knew you could land him. You knew you needed a tight end because you'd lost Trey Burton and Brent Selleck was retiring. This is the future of your tight end position. This is 5 years almost worth of rookie money. Which, let's be honest, the Eagles could kind of be doing with right now. They're in a very unique, very difficult cap situation where they're backloading contracts, constantly restructuring deals, finding loopholes to get guaranteed money over to players sooner. Howie Roseman is there working the books. He's getting arthritis, that wrist is moving so fast. And if your rookie guys aren't performing, there's gonna be problems. Dallas Goedert was brought in for a reason and no one is expecting him to be Rob Gronkowski out of the box. But there's gotta be something, and it's gotta be better than what we're seeing right now. But before we move on, let's just talk about the game coming up. Because if we don't, it's gonna get lost, you know. It's easy to forget amidst all of this drama and constant back and forth on Twitter and refreshing for the latest updates on who is and isn't working out for the Eagles. They've got a game this Sunday. And that game is against the super accurate, super scary Captain Andrew Luck and his band of merry men. Led, of course, by Governor Frank Reich, a man who is very familiar with this Eagles offense. Now, what I want to do here is something called perception versus reality, because the Colts have had a very good start. Yes, they're 1-1, and they should have really done better against the Bengals, but they came out firing against the Redskins, and that shocked a lot of people Unless you're like me and you took them +7, in which you were laughing the entire time. Anyway, we've got to talk about where they actually stand, because there's a lot about this Colts offense that just doesn't add up. Coming into this game, Andrew Luck is completing nearly 71% of his passes. The Colts are also the best third down team in the NFL. True. Very true. But let's have a look at this, shall we? The Colts average a 4.3 yard depth of target, which means that on average, the player is 4.3 yards away from Andrew Luck when the ball is thrown. Andrew Luck's air yards, which I know is a phrase that every Eagles fan will love by now, is at 2.7. That's literally me to this microphone away. If that doesn't define a dink and dunk offense, you want to say Sam Bradford was dink and dunk? I mean, let's be honest, the reason this is happening is that Andrew Luck didn't look great in preseason. He wasn't slinging it like he used to and being this confident field general where he's just firing cannons left, right and centre. He's a lot more methodical now. He's able to take checkdowns. Mainly because there is an offensive structure and he's not calling the entire playbook while Chuck Pagano twiddles his thumbs. But with Frank Reich at the helm, it's a West Coast type scheme with Andrew Luck just knowing he has options over the middle now. Eric Ebron and Jack Doyle are very much in the same vein as Zach Ertz and Trey Burton were a year ago. And they're converting on third down. They're not afraid to take a risk on 3rd and 5. They're converting them early. But what about the lack of success on the ground? The Colts only ranked 24th in the NFL through 2 weeks in terms of rushing yards. And they come up against an Eagles defense that is allowing under 3 yards per carry, the best in the NFL. So what are we going to see? To me, this says two things. Number one, Ryan Fitzpatrick doesn't run a dink and dunk offense. But Ryan Fitzpatrick was aware that the Eagles defense played their corners 10 yards away from the ball and had Mike Evans and had Deshaun Jackson. And would simply just chip away, run up to the corner, turn around, come back, easy completion. Because Fitzpatrick was getting the ball out under 2 seconds from his final hitch. That's remarkable. So you're telling me that a dink and dunk offense against a defense that plays their corners 10 yards... Do you see what I'm getting at here? Is there not just going to be a massive cushion of space where Andrew Luck just operates all game long and just dinks and dunks and dinks and dunks, and all of a sudden you've got a shootout on your hands? And it's Andrew Luck's dink and dunk versus Carson Wentz, who doesn't have a run game, with a botched up receiving corpse that's been healed by Jordan Matthews. And hey, if you're right about Jordan Matthews and he really is not a good fit for this team and you're not a fan, then, wow, this is going to be a very fun weekend, isn't it? Because Wentz is going to be taking his first hits, his first sacks more than likely, that he has since week 14. If he takes off and runs, is he going to be the same runner with the ball? Will there be a bit more conservatism now in the play of Carson Wentz? It's entirely possible. At the end of the day, we don't know what's going to happen, but this Colts offense, while statistically looks impressive, when you look a bit deeper, they're just dinking and dunking. And against this defense, it's going to be a problem. Unless Schwartz presses. Which is something that even Frank Reich, I don't think, will be prepared for, because the Eagles just don't press their cornerbacks. So why would they start now? Well, for one, there's T.Y. Hilton, who's injured coming into this game. He's questionable as of right now. Beyond him, they don't have many options. Why wouldn't you get Jalen Mills to press a slower corner? Why wouldn't you get Sidney Jones in the slot lining up over Jack Doyle and just maybe give him a bit of a punch at the line of scrimmage? Either way, we're only going to find out on Sunday. And my prediction for Sunday is simple. This is Mike Groh heading home. This is him having had his career with the Chargers, having been a quarterback guru, having groomed Carson Wentz. Now he gets a near-finished product in Andrew Luck. He's had a great career, and the relationships in that building are strong. But what stands out is that Reich has been against this defense every single week for 2 years now. In practice, out of practice, seeing it on game day, helping Schwartz, who would help Reich too with the offense. The two have been bouncing off each other for so long that it almost feels criminal now that they would separate. Because Schwartz knows everything about Frank Reich's offense. And when Reich pulls him up and says, hey, what would you do in this situation? All of those tiny little chats, all of those tiny little conversations all come back to each other. And it all loops back round as to find out who really is the smartest in the room. This isn't a game of who's going to win a shootout between Luck and Wentz. It's not a game of who's going to stagnate the run. It's not a game of who's got the better defense. It's a game of who can outwit a man they've spent 2 years working with, building a team with, sustaining success with, building an entire game plan with on both sides of the ball. As we all know, inside the red zone, that was Frank Reich's territory with the Philadelphia Eagles. Inside the red zone this year, do you not think Reich's going to have a clue or two as to what the Eagles are going to do? Do you not think he's got a slight hunch as to what it's going to be like? Well, if he doesn't, he's soon going to find out. In terms of a man advantage, the one thing they don't have is that Mike Groh is now an offensive coordinator. That is huge for Frank Reich, who, while has worked closely with Mike Groh as a wide receivers coach, maybe hasn't seen some of the tricks he's got up his sleeve as one of the most exciting potential coaching prospects in this league. His future as a coordinator is going to be a bright one. The team will not want to lose that anytime soon, and Frank Reich is going to be aware of it. But we haven't yet seen Mike Groh's impression on this offense. This may be the game we start to see a few more unconventional looks from the Eagles. What's there going to be? Are we going to see maybe a few more strange flea flicker calls or Philly special attempts? I don't think so. But you see what Matt Nagy's doing in Chicago, we may see some formations like that. That's my hunch. Because it's going to take something special to split two teams who are very similar. Both have franchise quarterbacks returning from injury. Both run a very similar offense. Both don't really have a strong running game at the moment. Both perimeter options are kind of weakened to a degree. Both have quite strong tight ends offensively. On defense, a very young secondary. Quincy Wilson for the Colts is going to be a stud. You've got a very young linebacker now, the name of Darius Leonard, who is killing it right now. They're very similar teams. And I think this could be a shootout, but it's going to be who's going to take the bigger gamble, which coach is going to get it. At the moment, if you're a betting man and you are looking at this line, it's difficult to know which way to go. Now, I think I'm 1-1 in picking Eagles games so far. The Eagles are 6-point favourites at the minute. If I'm honest, I'm taking the Eagles at home. The Eagles have been absolutely dominant at home in their last 2 years. The Link has turned into a fortress. Carson Wentz makes his triumphant return. And the Colts have looked better than expected. But this is by far the biggest defensive challenge they faced. The Redskins aren't a great defense, and neither are the Bengals. This defense is elite. Fletcher Cox is, in my opinion, a lead-out candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. This defense, regardless of the secondary shake-ups, is elite. And Carson Wentz at home field with a roaring Philadelphia crowd behind him, marching onto that field for the first time, having watched Nick Foles win a Super Bowl, run the off-season, run the pre-season, his team slowly becoming Nick's team just for a little bit. This is a big game for Carson Wentz. Because all eyes are going to be on him. The expectation will be higher than ever. Even though no one expects him to go out there and be Superman, fans are going to want to see production. They're going to want to see the hero that they fell in love with 1 year ago. The man that threw for over 3,200 yards and 30 touchdowns, and in my opinion was the NFL's MVP last year. They want to see that Carson Wentz back. And to expect it on week 1 is a lot. But a 6.5 line, I'm taking Carson Wentz, I'm taking the home field advantage, I'm taking the better defense, and I'm taking a coaching advantage. Mike Groh may know everything Doug and Schwartz will do, But you've got two coaches who've seen two very different sides to Frank Reich. And a third offensive coordinator who may have a trick or two up his sleeve. Take the Eagles and the points. That is the Outside Insider for this week. Carson Wentz's prodigal return is a few days away. If you've enjoyed this podcast, leave a like down below. Hit subscribe on iTunes. Rate it 5 stars. We'll see you next week for a bumper edition of the Outside Insider. But until then, from myself, Liam Jenkins, enjoy the Eagles game.